Muchas gracias a los organizadores. I will speak in English because I prefer to speak in English, but I think I can understand little Spanish. Yes, as you said, Carla, I want to present you a small piece of place of pool where people frequently unknown the composition of fauna, and it could be very interesting, especially for the climatic change and for biodiversity problem. And this is two type of temporary pool, charcos temporales. This type of environment is very special because in one place it's in Arctic, cold, your mountain, very, very cold, and all the water is freeze during the winter, and the water become free only during the 2 months of summer. And the other photo is in a place in Sahara, very dry place, and the water go each 10 years in this place, and the two places is very different, and but the population have some similarities, and it's why it's important to recognize this type of pools. I will show you now different type of pools in order to have an idea of the diversity of this type of temporary pool. Here it's pools from Morocco. It's very classical pools in Mediterranean area, and it's very common, but frequently destroyed by human activities. But in this type of country, the winter is very with a lot of rain, and the summer is very dry, and it's particularly favorable for temporary pool. Here it's the same type of pools in France, and we have diverse variety of place with tree or without tree, in very dry place or not, sometimes very small. And it's in order to show you one of these pool is dry, and frequently when you visit the place, especially in the summer, the places are dry. This place is more arid. It's in also in Morocco, but near the border of Sahara, and the lake below. I know one guy who tried to visit the pool, but he drive in the pool, but the pool was dry. It's more huge. It's more than 10 kilometers of size, and this place become completely dry most of the time. And some years you have a raining period during the winter, and the lake appear. And this environment is typical of a Saharan place. And as you can see, there are no vegetation. This place is in tropical area. It's in New Caledonia, and it's a very frequent place, in fact. And frequently the people who work in pool forgot to put the net in this type of pool. This place is in order to show you the huge diversity of this type of pool. And this temporary ponds is not really charcos temporales. It's temporales, but in fact the deep is 65 meters of deep during the raining season. And you have two photos of this environment with 2 days of between. The first photo is 2 days before the second one, and during huge raining, all the pool become full of water. And this type of pools is especially small. It's 1 meter of diameter, and it's in a rocky place near Paris. And this place have different interesting organisms living there. Also, you have to know that this type of pool could be done by man. In this case, it's artificial ponds for enter, and people create this type of pools, and the population of organisms can survive in this pool. This place is a very nice place in south of France, and you have sometimes some hole, and you after the people forgot the death in this type of hole because it's very old, very very old, and you can have water during the rainy period, and you have some organisms that, as you see, it's triops. And sometimes we can create pools without any idea of create that. The last photo, last slides, next please. It's a very particular environment. You have also the equivalent in Bolivia. It's the salty ponds. In fact, it's not really the same things, but the strategy to live there is the same. And then the type of organisms living in this type of lake, salty lake, is not the same species, but have the same strategy. And in this case, the dry period could be also, or sometimes the water stay in the environment, but the salinity increase very, very importantly, and the organisms have the same cycle of life. How you can survive in this type of environment? It's how you can survive if you live in water in a place where the water disappears. And I want to explain you this part because it's very interesting. And when perhaps you never try to put your net in this type of pools, but in this case, it's a relatively huge tank in order to make selection of organisms. And if you look at in detail, you will see many, many, many organisms. No fishes, but many crustaceans are present in this type of pool. The larger is 3-4 centimeters. And it's in order to have an idea of the shape of organisms living in this type of pond, I present you the larger. The larger is the triops. It's probably the larger of the world, the biggest. You have also small crustaceans in the end, and we can have more detail in next slides, please. Here it's an ostraca. In South America, you have many genus, many genera, but the most frequent in tropical area is Dendrocephalus. And the very complex head here, it's Dendrocephalus from Brazil. And this group is a fairy shrimp, is an ostraca. This group is Spinnicodata. It's a clam shrimp in English. And this is, you have this type of organisms in Bolivia. This more famous for people who know these organisms is the triops because it's very strange animals and relatively large, as you saw in different photos. This is another, the group of triops is Notostraca. This genus, this species is not a triops, but a Lepidurus. Triops live in Bolivia, in Gran Chaco, and Lepidurus live in Argentina. Probably you have also in Bolivia, I have no idea. In order to have an idea of these strange organisms, you have different living position. When you put them outside the water, they cannot survive long times without water. Also, you can have some fishes living in temporary ponds, but only in tropical, very warm water. And in Bolivia, you have this type of organisms in Amazonia, in Gran Chaco. And also you have this group also in other place, but this species is especially living in temporary ponds in Bolivia. Also, you have very small crustaceans living in temporary ponds as copepods. Here you have a photo of Boquela, which is known by many people because it's one of the most important animals as plankton in Titicaca Lake. Also, you have Cladoceran and ostracods living in temporary ponds. Then you have many organisms living in this type of environment. How they can survive? How they can survive? Here you have a lepidurus dry because the water disappear, and in other photo you have a Limnadia completely dry because the pond disappear by the effect of the sun. How they can survive? The strategy is to produce resting egg. Huevos resistentes is a sort of embryo living in sort of shell, and this embryo can stop to live and restart to live when the water come again. And if you look at the photo, one is Artemia, brine shrimp, that you know because it's very important and very famous in aquaculture. And you have two other species. As you can see, the shape of the eggs is different following the species of or the group. And if here you have a triops, a French triops, producing eggs, and you can imagine that the most important things to these animals is to produce eggs, resting eggs, because the adults cannot survive during the dry period. Only the eggs can survive. Then the adult need to produce many, many eggs, and after after the death of the animals, probably by the drying period or also by predation, the eggs can stay at the bottom of the pool and produce next generation. Next, please. Here you have a Limnadia, and in the back of these animals, you have very nice eggs. And these eggs are in the bottom of the pools after that the animals lay the eggs, but the eggs will stay at this sleeping period until the next raining period. Also, I show you fishes. This is a killifish. Also, they produce, it's an exception, in fact, in fishes, because the fishes cannot survive in temporary ponds, except in very warm tropical ponds. And they produce eggs very strong. And when the water are abundant in the pool, and that the chemical composition of the water change, the fishes can start to move and start to live. And the most important things for these animals after to produce the resting eggs is to have a very rapid development in the water in order to become adult and produce again new resting eggs for the next raining period. This is very important. Even for the fishes, for example, the fishes that I show you start the reproduction after 3 weeks. It's very incredible development. This is the illustration of brine shrimp, Artemia. And you have also an example of clam shrimp. The development is similar, not exactly the same because the adult is different, but they start very, very small from the resting egg and go very rapidly in development in the water. And for example, this 7 stages occur in 1 day in tropical area. 1 day is enough to do the 7 stages. It's very fast. And this strategy to produce resting eggs is very old. And we can have this strategy in Devonian period. And I want to show you the shape of organisms in Devonian to illustrate the fact. You have a sort of triops, you have a Spinichordata, and you have an Anostraca. You have the tadpole shrimp, clam shrimp, and fairy shrimp, the similar morphology than the current organisms. And since Devonian, more than 300 million of years. And if you look at in detail the eighth, you will have resting eggs. And when the resting egg appear, the strategy was good for this type of organisms. They change a lot genetically, but morphologically they change not so much. And to show you different resting eggs, you can see that you have crustaceans, copepods, brachiopods, but also rotifers who can produce this type of eggs. But you can you have many type of groups living in temporary ponds who can produce resting eggs. The other strategy is to move when the water disappears. And how we can study this type of environment. And I'm not. You can imagine that my feet is very in the deep sediment. In fact, of the pool, it's not so easy to go in this type of pool. And here it's an example from Bolivia. It's how we can find the good place to study the temporary ponds, and it's not very far from La Paz. And you have two pictures from Google Earth, and you have one is in raining period, and other one is more at the end of the dry period. And you can see that you have three huge lakes, not huge, but three lakes, and you have three small pools, not very far. And you can see that one is completely, the three small are dry in one picture, and the other one, they are in water. Meaning that in the big pool, in the small lake, you have water probably every time, but in the smaller, during the dry period, this pond become dry. And in this case, many organisms, like fishes, cannot survive in this type of ponds. Only animals with resting eggs can survive. Well, how we can study that? You can pass the net in the water and you will have the organisms like that. But you have to be there at the good moment. Next slide. You can take the sediment at the bottom, in the bottom of the ponds, and you can find the eggs in the sediment. And as I saw you have a different morphology of the eggs following the group. Then you can recognize the species, at least the genera, in a pond. And in a special case, it's a tropical Olimnadia. You have one shape, one species. And here you have 7 species. After that, we can try to breed the organisms in the lab. And but it's very important because most of the fauna is very hard to sample. If you are in Sahara environment, you imagine that you cannot be there during the raining period because it's very infrequent. Then you take the sediment and you produce the animals in your lab. And you can have many of them. And also you can produce the eggs. And you can use in aquaculture, for example. And it's an example from French literature, but it's not so easy to find in English. Here it's south of France, and as you, I don't know if you know, but in France we have a huge variability of temperature, and you can have raining in the summer or in the winter, even in the south. And during the winter, you have only 2 species, indicate CH and TS. And these species live, the CH is present only during winter, and the other species is present only during the summer, meaning that the temperature is especially important for hatching of species. If it's too warm for a species, the species cannot hatch, and some species can hatch only with warm temperature. It's important to know that because with the condition of climatic change, we can have problem with this type of things because some species can survive, but they cannot hatch. It's the case probably that we will show in Europe, in continental Europe, where the temperature of the winter become more warm, and some species need freeze to hatch. It could be the same in Bolivia. Also, it's an example from Morocco. but the life cycle is different following the species. Some species live only 50, less than 1 month, and some species need 6 months to live. And meaning that some species can live in very small ponds, some other in huge ponds, and this composition of organisms will be not the same following the size and the duration of water. Meaning, if you have climatic change, you can have some ponds who become temporary. It's a very huge problem for fishes, for example. But you have also the possibility to change and the pool become more dry. And some species cannot survive in the twice case. And all these characteristics means that this type of fauna could be very good indicator for understand the climatic change. As I said you, for example, if pool become temporary, you will have change of fauna. But in this case, in Bolivia, near the Titicaca Lake, you have more knowledge in the big lake than in the small ponds around these lakes. But the risk is that some ponds become temporary and you have change of the composition of fauna. And it could be very important to study now this fauna, and especially because you have a very huge endemisms in this type of ponds. It's Carla now.
Thank you. Merci, merci, Nicolas. Bueno, sobre todo lo que les ha explicado Nicolás, entonces, como les había adelantado el día de ayer, hemos trabajado y les ha mostrado ya la foto en 7 lagunas, he tomado muestras en 7 lagunas, entonces les voy a mostrar realmente pequeños resultados preliminares. Entonces ahí tiene lo que justamente ha mostrado Nicolás. Entonces yo he mostrado en el mes de abril, antes de mi viaje, que ha sido entre junio y julio a Francia, y he mostrado las 3 lagunas, la primera, la segunda y la tercera que ven a mano izquierda, ¿no?, de la pantalla, y he mostrado los 2 charcos que se encuentran en la parte de arriba. También hemos ido a muestrear lo que se encuentra al medio de la pantalla, bueno, casi al medio de la pantalla, que de ahí Nicolás tiene, por ejemplo, un organismo que se llama justamente Montelimneria y que estamos en proceso de describir, y ustedes ven, es cerca de Batallas, se llama Culucachi el lugar, y está cerca del camino, y es más o menos entre charco bofedal, como lo conocemos nosotros, porque más arriba hay varios bofedales. Y es esta, bueno, él ha mostrado una foto, yo no he mostrado la foto porque recién he llegado de Francia y no he tenido el tiempo de ir al laboratorio. He retornado las muestras que él me ha facilitado, que son del 2007, que es un francés que la ha llevado allá las muestras, y yo he trabajado y he tenido la oportunidad de trabajar con estas muestras, y ahí les muestro unas pequeñas fotos del microscopio, de los cortes que hemos hecho de este Montelimneria, que lo llama así Nicola, y pueden ver la parte del post-abdomen y bueno, algunos detalles de la cabeza. Esta sería una posible nueva especie, estamos en describirla. Y hay otra que hemos encontrado en 7 lagunas en el charco número 3, que le llamamos, y que no he puesto todavía la foto, pero que también estamos en proceso de describirla. Entonces se ha quedado, hemos encontrado solo un organismo, tengo el resto de la muestra acá, todavía no lo hemos terminado de procesar. Ese único organismo lo hemos llevado a Francia, ha retornado y se ha dejado una pequeña parte del organismo para que pueda ser pasado por mitogenoma. Obviamente todavía no tenemos los resultados, ¿no? Pero pensamos que podría ser una nueva especie, o estamos en proceso de averiguar esto. Después ahí tienen otros ejemplos de las fotos, de los cortes de la cabeza, de detalles entre la foto del medio y la de la izquierda, son detalles que son súper importantes para hacer la descripción de la especie y, bueno, preparar el artículo. Todas estas fotos tienen que ser dibujadas en detalle para poder hacer la descripción. Ahí, bueno, esta era la base que tenemos de una revista peruana de Samanáez y López, que justamente han hecho los cortes de las quintas patas de Boiquela, que es el otro trabajo que hemos realizado con Nicolás. Y las tres primeras, la primera es, en realidad son boiquélidos que son encontrados principalmente en los lagos Alto Andinos. Muy conocido tal vez para Anita, que debe estar allí, ¿no? Boiquela occidentalis es la primera. La segunda es de Boiquela popoensis y la tercera es Boiquela titicacae. Obviamente he llevado muestras del lago y hemos encontrado Boiquela occidentalis, hemos confirmado también Boiquela titicacae. Sin embargo, cuando ya hemos visto las muestras que hemos traído de Charco 1, Charco 2 y de las lagunas, de las 7 lagunas 1, 2 y 3, no hemos podido identificar Boiquela titicacae como tal. O sea, el esquema que ustedes están viendo en el número 3 no era similar a las microdisecciones que nosotros hemos realizado. Pareciera entre gracilis y popoensis, pero es un poco complicado, pero sobre todo se parece más a gracilis, ¿no? Pero no hemos confirmado. Ahí tienen los cortes que nosotros hemos realizado y que coinciden con la del medio con occidentalis, la otra que coincide con titicacae y la tercera que es justamente la que no sabemos exactamente a qué corresponde, pero que los hemos encontrado en 7 lagunas y en los charcos, en el charco 1 y 3. Y que algunos son muy coloridos y hablábamos de cuestiones de adaptación que tal vez podemos ver en las... Perdón. Entonces, tampoco, eso es lo que he podido sacar rápidamente como foto de biodiversidad. En realidad es mucho más grande la biodiversidad que hemos encontrado en el charco 3. Ahí pueden ver 3 en la parte superior, hacia la derecha y hacia la izquierda, 3 especies ya de cladóceros. Un poco destrozados, sí se ve al medio un copépodo, sí, una boiquela. Igual, los organismos están un poco debilitados. Uno porque, bueno, para hacer genética tienen que ser fijados con alcohol al 95%, ¿no? Algo que le parecía interesante y algo raro a Nicolás era que en esos charcos encontremos, por ejemplo, yalelas, que la ven en la parte izquierda de abajo de la presentación, y porque no es lo común que se encuentra y es algo que todavía que tenemos que reflexionar. Al medio de la pantalla están las 2 cerodamnias negras que ustedes les había dicho ayer que les iba a mostrar. Y obviamente ustedes pueden ver arriba un pequeño como empanadita, que es el efipio, los huevos de resistencia que ha explicado Nicolás, que en función del grosor incluso de la cápsula que contiene a los huevos, se puede hacer estudios de saber si ese cambio climático ha sido muy fuerte, muy extremo o no. Y ustedes pueden ver que la adaptación de esta cerodamnia, que pensamos que también es otra especie, una nueva posible especie endémica, como lo ha dicho Nicolás, está adaptada gracias a este color negro, ¿no? A la radiación UV. Algo que pienso que es importante, que si uno quiere ver estos cambios climáticos y hacer experimentaciones con UV, no necesitamos hacer tal vez en laboratorio, simplemente identificar estos charcos y hacer un seguimiento, un monitoreo del impacto de la radiación UV, por ejemplo, en este tipo de ambientes, ¿no? Entonces serían como pequeños laboratorios desplazados en el lugar. Y finalmente lo que ven abajo de la cerodamnia es un ciclopoide de gran tamaño, ¿no? que obviamente no es parte de nuestro trabajo, pero sí es parte de la biodiversidad. Y bueno, había mucho más, había Quidorus, había Macrotrix, ¿no? Entonces, hay un gran trabajo que tenemos que hacer por detrás, primero de describir la biodiversidad que estamos encontrando en estos charcos. Es de demostrarles cómo solamente haciendo clic en cualquier lugar del Google, cerca, todo esto es en el altiplano, cerca de, por ejemplo, esto es cerca de Chunavi. En cualquier lugar que ustedes vean, hay estos charcos temporales en varios lugares. Sin embargo, como lo ha explicado Nicolás y les he explicado ayer, no son de interés. Todos nos interesamos y todos estamos con el sistema TDPS. Sin embargo, estos pueden ser también interesantes temas de estudios, ¿no? Y lo malo es que también, como decía Nicolás, son ambientes que están muy vulnerables, ¿no? Porque como son charquitos, nadie le da importancia y lo primero que hacen es ponerle tierra, como es que ha pasado en 7 lagunas, han tapado y han construido una escuela encima, ¿no? Y entonces no sabemos ni siquiera lo que había, y vuelvo a repetir, la importancia de todo este tema es de que podemos utilizar estos ambientes como para monitoreo de los cambios climáticos y experimentación de adaptación a la radiación UV. Eso sería todo de mi parte. Muchas gracias.